Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. We're going to be checking out something a little different today. It's called The Liat Show. And it's really a fascinating mix of personal stories and Israeli culture with insightful conversations. And often these conversations feature Liat's father, Nissim, who is a veteran architect. Are you ready to jump in?
Absolutely. The first thing that grabbed my attention was Liet's self-description. She describes herself as a new kind of architect, but not of buildings, of
Oh,
stories.
I love that. It really makes you expect something different, right?
Yeah.
So for those of us who haven't encountered it, what exactly is The Liat Show?
Well, it's a combination, actually. It's a Substack newsletter and a podcast. Liet combines these personal stories with glimpses into Israeli life, food, music, art, and she even touches on current events. And it's all presented in these kind of unfolding episodes.
So it's not like the typical, pre-recorded podcast where everything's already nicely packaged.
Not at all. Liet writes and releases the content pretty much in real time. And that gives it a sort of raw live performance feel. In fact, she said that it's hard to even describe what she does because it's so new and different from everything else out there.
Okay, now you've got me interested. So you mentioned Substack, and for anyone who may not be familiar with it, can you tell us a bit about what makes it special?
Sure. Substack is a platform that allows writers to connect directly with their readers. It's like a more intimate space for conversation and exchange compared to, let's say, the chaotic world of social media. Lita herself has talked about this, contrasting the conversational tone of Substack with what she calls the combative nature of Twitter, for example. And she really highlights that potential for, for a deeper engagement and a genuine discussion.
And I think that makes a lot of sense, especially when you think about the conversations that Liat has on the show with her father, Nissim. They've actually done a whole series on the history of construction in Israel, and it seems like it was really popular.
Oh, it was. Over 1,000 readers engaged with the first installment and nearly 50 new subscribers came on board. There's clearly something about their dynamic that's connecting with people.
So what is it about their conversations that's so unique? What can we learn from this father-daughter duo?
Well, Nassim, as a veteran architect, brings this seasoned perspective, sometimes with a touch of dry humor, especially when it comes to what he sees as a lack of historical awareness, particularly among Americans.
And I imagine Liat brings the younger generation's perspective.
Exactly. So you see this really fascinating generational difference play out. Liat approaches things with a certain idealism, while Nissim, with all his experience, offers a more pragmatic lens.
That sounds like a dynamic that could offer a lot of valuable lessons for a lot of people, maybe even challenge some preconceived notions.
Absolutely. It's especially relevant for, let's say, American baby boomers, encouraging us to consider different generational perspectives and to recognize the contributions of, well, those who came before us.
Now, in this latest series, Liat and Nissim tackle public housing, which is a topic with global implications. And they start by taking us back to the very beginnings. And it's a story that really starts to unfold during the Industrial Revolution. So what was going on then that made public housing such a pressing issue?
Well, you had this huge influx of people moving to cities for work, driven by, the rise of factories and industries.
Yeah.
And that led to overcrowding and sanitation issues, basically a housing crisis. And then, of course, World War I added another layer of complexity with widespread destruction, leaving even more people without homes.
It's hard to fathom the sheer scale of those problems,
Yeah.
especially from our modern perspective.
Yeah, it was a really pivotal moment in history. The need for some kind of innovative solutions was becoming critical, and that's where these public housing initiatives started to emerge. And one of the most influential movements during this period was Bauhaus.
Bauhaus. Now, that's a name a lot of people have heard, but could you give us a little crash course? What made it so revolutionary, especially in the context of public housing?
Bauhaus was a German architectural movement that came about between the world wars, and its core principles were functionality and minimalist design. Think, clean lines, simple forms, and a real emphasis on using materials efficiently. And this led to standardized construction techniques, which made it incredibly well-suited for those mass housing projects.
So it wasn't just about the aesthetics, but about practicality and meeting a very real need.
Precisely. Take, for example, their emphasis on simple geometric shapes and flat roofs. It created a very distinctive visual style, yes, but it also really simplified construction, and that made it faster and more cost-effective, which was crucial given the housing shortage.
That's fascinating. It's amazing to think how these design choices made almost a century ago could have such a direct impact on solving such a big social problem.
What's even more fascinating is how these Bauhaus design principles, which originated in Germany, spread throughout the world and continue to have an influence on architecture today.
Okay, now I'm really curious. If we look around our own cities today, are there some telltale signs of Bauhaus influence that we might notice?
Well, think about those buildings with the clean lines, the flat roofs, the focus on functionality rather than ornamentation. They might not be exact replicas of Bauhaus buildings, but you can often see those echoes of its principles in modern architecture.
So Bauhaus wasn't just some passing trend. It really shaped the way we design and build.
Exactly. But like any groundbreaking movement, Bauhaus had its critics. Some argued that it put too much emphasis on style and aesthetics, maybe even at the expense of fully addressing the complexities of the housing crisis.
That makes sense. It's a reminder that even the best, most innovative ideas are often met with debate and, well, different interpretations.
And it's in those debates that new ideas and solutions can often emerge. In fact, Liet and Nassim discussed the formation of CIM, the International Congresses of Modern Architecture, which was established in 1928.
What was the driving force behind the creation of CIM, and how did they approach the public housing challenge differently?
Well, CIM was formed by a group of architects who were really dedicated to finding better, more effective solutions for public housing. They recognized that the need for housing went beyond just, providing shelter. It was about creating livable communities and addressing these social needs.
So they were taking a more holistic view, looking beyond the physical structures.
Exactly. They believed that architecture itself could be a tool for social change, and that well-designed public housing could be a key factor in improving people's lives.
Now, in one of their conversations, Leanne asks this seemingly simple but really profound question. She asks, what would have happened without architects? And it prompts a really thoughtful response from Nassim. What insights did he offer?
Well, Nissim's answer emphasizes the crucial role that architects play in driving progress and improving lives through design. He argues that without architects pushing boundaries and challenging the norms, the world simply wouldn't have advanced the way it has. Think about all the innovative structures, the efficient use of space, the way buildings shape our cities and affect our daily lives. All of that stems from the vision and expertise of architects.
It's interesting to think about how their different generations shape their perspectives on this.
Yeah.
You have Eliot, perhaps coming from a more idealistic viewpoint, and then Nissim with his years of experience and a deep understanding of the real-world impact of architecture.
Yeah. Their back and forth offers a valuable lesson, especially for, well, as I mentioned earlier, American baby boomers. It encourages us to consider the perspectives of different generations, to recognize the contributions of those who came before us.
It sounds like there's a lot to unpack here, both in terms of the history of public housing and this fascinating dynamic between Liet and Nissim. What are some of the other key takeaways from their conversations, and how can we as listeners apply these insights to our own lives? We'll dive into that right after one.
Well, one thing that really stuck with me was how much they emphasized, the importance of open dialogue and respectful debate, even when there are different viewpoints. I mean, Nissim might tease Americans a little bit about their knowledge of history, but Liet's quick to point out that, her audience on Substack is different. She describes them as intelligent and open to hearing diverse perspectives.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's one of the things that really sets Substack apart.
Yeah.
It seems to attract a more engaged audience, people who really want to learn and, have thoughtful conversations.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons the Liet Show is so compelling. It fosters genuine conversations and avoids that negativity that can often just dominate social media. It's a space where people can learn from each other, regardless of their background or their beliefs.
It really is, like you said, a breath of fresh air. It's a reminder that, respectful disagreement and intellectual curiosity, they are still possible, even in our world today, which often feels so polarized.
It truly is. And it's not just the content itself that draws people in. It's the dynamic between Liet and Nissim. They each bring their own experiences and viewpoints to the table, which creates this multi-generational conversation that's both informative and fun to listen to.
I can imagine it's almost like you're eavesdropping on a really great family dinner conversation where history and culture and personal stories are all just woven together.
Exactly. You've got it. It's that blend of personal stories and insightful observations that makes the Liet Show so unique. You're not just getting the facts, you're connecting with the human stories behind them.
Liet has even described her show as the compulsory education school of the future, which is a pretty bold statement, but it shows just how ambitious she is. She really wants to create something new and impactful.
And it takes a lot of courage and dedication to create something as unconventional as The Liat Show, especially today when the media landscape is so saturated.
I think you're right. She's really building a new kind of media experience from the ground up and relying on the support of her audience to make it happen.
Right. It reminds us that we, as people who consume all this content, have a role to play in supporting the creators who are really pushing boundaries and challenging conventions.
So what can we as listeners do to support Liat and help her keep creating this great content?
Well, becoming a founding member of The Liat Show on Substack is one way. It's $8 a month. And, being a patron on Patreon is another. That's just $1 a month. And both of those are fantastic ways to show your support and to contribute directly to Liat's ability to keep writing and producing these amazing episodes.
I think it's great that she's offering these different options so that people can support her at whatever level they're comfortable with.
Yeah, it really speaks to her commitment to building a community and making her work accessible to everyone.
Now, for those who might not be familiar with Substack, can you give us a quick explanation of how it works?
Sure. Substack is a platform that allows writers to publish their work directly to their subscribers. It's sort of a combination of a blog, a newsletter, and a podcasting platform all in one. And it really creates this direct and intimate relationship between creators and their audience.
And I know that The Liat Show is also available on other platforms like YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, right?
That's right. And this multi-platform approach is great, because it allows people to access the content in whatever way is, most convenient for them.
It's clear that Liat is really passionate about making her show as accessible as possible. And it's no wonder that listeners from 86 countries and 34 U.S. states have tuned in. That's a pretty incredible reach for an independent creator.
It really is. And it just goes to show the power of word of mouth and the universal appeal of Liat's style. This blend of storytelling, cultural insights, and really engaging dialogue.
So, for those who haven't checked out The Liat Show yet, I definitely recommend giving it a try. It's a really refreshing, thought-provoking experience. You'll be wanting more, I guarantee it.
And if you're already a fan, help spread the word. Share an episode with a friend, leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, or just engage in the comment section. Every bit of support helps Liat continue to create this incredible content.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into The Liat Show, I have to ask, what stood out to you the most from Liat and Nissim's conversations? Was there a particular insight or anecdote that really resonated with you?
For me, it was that discussion of Bauhaus. How those design principles, which came about in a very specific historical context, went on to have such a huge and lasting impact on architecture all over the world. It really makes you stop and think about those ripple effects of ideas, how choices made, even decades ago can still be shaping the world we live in today.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that history isn't just like facts and figures in a textbook. It's woven into the very fabric of our lives, from the buildings we live and work in to the way our cities are laid out.
And it also makes me appreciate the role of architects in a whole new way. I think Nissim's point about how architects drive progress through their designs really struck a chord with me. It is fascinating to think about, isn't it? How architects take a vision, an idea, and turn it into these physical structures that shape our experience of the world. And they influence how we live and work and interact with each other and everything around us.
Liat and Nissim's conversations definitely get you thinking. And it seems like the perfect starting point for anyone who's curious about The Liat Show. Subscribing on Substack, even just for the free option, seems like a great way to dip your toes into this really unique world that she's created.
Oh, absolutely. And for those who want to go a little deeper and, really support Liat's work, becoming a founding member for $8 a month or a patron on Patreon for just $1 a month is a wonderful way to do that. It's kind of like joining a book club, but instead of just discussing one book, you're diving into a whole universe of ideas and stories.
And just a quick reminder for those who are new to Substack, it's a platform that lets writers publish their work directly to their subscribers. So it fosters a much more intimate and direct connection than traditional social media platforms do.
Exactly. It's a space for more in-depth discussions, for a higher level of engagement. You can think of it almost like a digital salon where writers and readers come together to share their ideas and perspectives and, just a love of storytelling.
And of course, on top of the Substack newsletter, The Liat Show is also available as a podcast on all the major platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So it's really accessible to a wide audience.
I think that shows just how committed Leah is to making her work accessible to everyone, no matter what their format preference is or what platform they use.
So whether you prefer to read or listen or maybe a little both, The Lead Show offers a really enriching and unique experience. It's definitely worth checking out. Now, as we wrap up our deep dive today, I'm left with a bit of a thought-provoking question. It came up during Liat and Nissim's conversation, but they didn't really address it directly. So if architects are, as Nissim said, the architects of progress, what other professions or individuals play a similar role in shaping the world we live in today?
That's a great question to consider. It challenges us to think about the impact of different professions and the ways in which individuals, through their actions and ideas, contribute to the way our society evolves.
So, as you go about your day, think about those who are shaping our world, pushing boundaries, and challenging the norms. Maybe you'll find inspiration in some unexpected places. And who knows, maybe you're one of those shaping forces yourself.
And if you're looking for inspiration for some thought-provoking conversation, definitely check out The Liat Show. It's a wonderful reminder that even in a world that's constantly changing, the power of storytelling can connect us, help us understand each other, and yes, even drive progress.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.